Welcome back everyone to another Meals with Michael. So this is my second meal being filmed anyway in the new kitchen and the new place that we have here in California. And it is cold and it is rainy and it is a California wintry day because it's January and everything. So I wanted to make something comforting. I wanted to make something warm. And I am making chili tonight. My chili recipe over the years has changed, and it changes about every single time that I do it. It depends on what I find fresh in the store. I find what I like to have, what I feel like having. Do I want to spice it up a bit more? Do I want to make it more savory? That's a great thing about chili. You can make it however you want. There is really no wrong way that I can think of to make chili from that standpoint. So I heated up my pan here on my burner just to get it a little warm, and I've got some olive oil on the bottom. And I am going to start with about 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. Almost a tablespoon actually, because if you know me by now, you know that I love garlic. So we're going to start that up in our pan. And we're going to get it to where we can actually hear it sizzle with the oil and everything. And you want to start to smell the fragrance. You want the garlic to release its flavors and release its aromas, as it were. Assuming my burners, I'm still learning my burners. So still assuming my burners are going to get warm enough in time. Here we go. I'm starting to hear that little bit of a sizzle. Yes, that's one of my favorite things. And I mentioned before that I actually buy jarred, chopped, and minced garlic because, you know, I love garlic and I use it a lot. So having to actually peel garlic and chop it and to roast it and everything as well all the time is a bit much considering how much I actually use garlic. So I like the jarred minced garlic for this. 1 clove of garlic is about a teaspoon of garlic. So I've got about 2, maybe 3 teaspoons in here, so about 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. Then I'm going to add in, I chopped up some shallots. A very small shallot. I just sliced it up and then ran my knife through it to break it down. That's the great thing about shallots, is you don't have to put a lot of work into them to have them break down. Ooh, already smelling awesome. Garlic and shallots and olive oil. That's a foundation for a lot of good dishes. Bring that down a little bit because I don't want to burn anything. And now I'm going to add in my meat. So I actually have an 80-20 blend here of ground beef. You can use chicken, you can use turkey if you want. If you're trying to make a vegetarian chili, then either skip this part or put in tofu. Either one of those I think would be fine to do. But I'm using an 80-20. Now, since I moved back to California, I have realized the cost of food is incredibly high compared to what I was used to paying. So I can't really afford to go and just buy things as I need them anymore. So I was at the club store, I won't say which one, but I was at the club store, and I saw this great deal for ground beef. It was like 4 pounds and everything for a really good price. So I bought the 4 pounds, I brought it home, I broke it down into 4 1-pound chunks to freeze. Now, how do you keep from getting freezer burn? Because I've had these in the freezer now for 2 weeks and they're actually doing pretty good. So my trick to preventing freezer burn is it's all about the air. You want to have as little air around your meat as possible. So the first thing I did was I dried off my meat after I broke it into my 4 sections. And then I double wrapped it in cling film, pretty tight around it. And then I double wrapped it in aluminum foil to have an extra protection. And then just stuck that in the freezer. So when I wanted this, I knew last night I was going to make something with ground beef. I wasn't sure what. I really knew chili as I was coming home tonight. That I pulled it out, just stuck it into the refrigerator and let it thaw from that. And sure enough, when I opened it up, it was still the right color. There was no freezer burn on the edges or anything behind it. So that's really good. Now I use an 80-20 blend. Um, interesting story. I went trying to save money. I went to another store, box store as it were, and I bought some ground beef there about a month ago. It wasn't labeled 80/20, 90/10 like I'm used to seeing. It just said ground beef. It was a good price, so I bought it. And when I cooked it up, I was swimming in beef fat. There was so much fat, it wasn't even funny. I had to throw so much of that away. So, lesson learned. I needed to say what it is, whether it's 80/20 or 90/10 or 95/5, even better. So if you want a really lean meat, you can do something like bison or buffalo or ostrich. I've done all of those and they're really good, but they're very lean, so you have to add fat to the dish because fat is flavor. So you want to make sure you have that. So this is browning up nicely. And I am not going to drain this because fat is flavor. And as an 80/20 goes, you don't end up with a ton of fat, so it doesn't become a greasy dish and everything. If you want leaner, again, 90/10 or go with buffalo, bison, ostrich meat, that kind of a thing. All right, so that's now browned up. I'm going to add in, I have diced up 1 green bell pepper. It was about a large green bell pepper. So we're going to bring that in. The reason I'm bringing those in now is things like bell peppers and carrots. If you're going to add carrots, if you want to do that, they take longer to break down, so you want to bring them in earlier to the party so they actually have time to cook and break down. Raw vegetables are fine for our crudité or a salad, but you don't necessarily want raw vegetables when you're making a chili. You want them actually cooked for this. They don't have to be mushy, but you want them cooked. See, and some of that fat's actually being absorbed also by the green pepper. So we're doing pretty well here. Okay. That's going. I'm going to add into this now. I took 1 beefsteak tomato and I chopped it up into large chunks. For a chili, you really don't need fine mincing. You don't need all of those fancy things that get done when you're looking at vegetables and spending a lot of time. Also, this is a weeknight meal, so I wanted to do something somewhat quick, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on prep work. I think my entire prep work tonight took me maybe 15 minutes to get ready for this. So I just did a rough chop on that. I like to do a fresh tomato because I'm going to be adding some canned diced tomato into this because I want a stronger tomato flavor. But fresh tomato actually makes a difference to this as well. That's a difference between a store-bought chili and a homemade chili using fresher ingredients. So I have here 1 can of diced tomatoes, and I like to get tomatoes for the most part that have also been seasoned in the can. So these have been seasoned with green peppers and onion and garlic, so it's essentially the same thing that's going in here as well, but they've added it to the tomato too when they actually canned it, so it's been sitting in those seasonings, and you're adding a little bit more flavor as you go into this as well. I'm so happy. This is going to be good. One of the things I like about doing chili is, particularly since there's just 2 of us, is it is a good prep meal item. You know, it's high in protein. For this, you can put as many vegetables as you want in to make it a somewhat healthier dish for that. And you can then portion it out to have it for lunch or for dinner and everything as well. Okay, so chili. Chili needs beans. There are different kinds of things you can do. I've done a 3-bean chili, a 4-bean chili, a 5-bean chili for that. But for today, mainly because of what only I could find on the shelf, I'm doing a 2-bean chili. So I have dark red kidney beans. I've done 2 cans of those because, again, I only found 2 beans. And I want a certain amount of beans in this recipe. We're just mixing that in there. And black beans. So I was looking for pinto beans. They had chili pinto beans, but I didn't want to add that chili sauce into this as well because I like my own seasoning for things. But you can do those if you want. Don't drain those and everything because you want all that sauce. These beans have actually been drained and they've both been rinsed through to get rid of all the starch and everything that comes from a can and the extra sodium. I did buy low sodium beans as well because one thing you do want to watch is your salt intake for things. See, it's going to be really hearty by the time we're done here. Okay. And I just had on a whim when I was at the store and I couldn't find enough beans. I thought corn. Corn is excellent in chili. It adds a little bit of sweetness, helps to balance out the savory that's in there. And it was a canned corn because it's January. But if it was summer and I was doing this, I would probably do fresh corn on the cob and then just cut it up and everything to put it in here. But there isn't really that big of a difference between fresh corn that you're taking the kernels off the cob and canned corn or even frozen corn that you have steamed out. So the frozen corn though would have a little more water into it, so I'm trying to control the water amount that's in this dish. So that's my main ingredients. But what about seasoning? Seasoning's a good thing. I have a lot of seasoning that I'm going to do. We'll bring it over here for a second for you and explain as we go. So as I mentioned, my chili recipe changes pretty much all the time depending on what I'm in the mood for and what I'm putting into the pot, as it were, as far as things go. So one of the first things I want to put in here is when I was in Turkey, Istanbul many years ago, I went to this great spice market and I found these wonderful spices and I bought a lot of them. I did. And they're still strong and they're still potent because it was a really good spice market. So I have what's called an Ottoman spice from Turkey. This is actually really good with beef and chicken dishes, anything you're going to do hearty for that. It gives it a nice savory flavoring to it. And after you add each seasoning, you are just stirring to incorporate. Just getting everybody together. It's one big happy camper party. So I have my Ottoman spice seasoning, and I came across this, what's called a Turkish kebab seasoning. It actually is very strong in cumin. Cumin is great for chili. It's good for Mexican food as well. So I actually have about a tablespoon, maybe a tablespoon and a half of cumin. I didn't actually measure out my spices this time around because I like to make chili by look and feel off of things. I don't like to actually have true measurements. I like to do what feels right, what tastes right, what smells right as I go. Oh, this is coming together so beautifully. Already we have that Turkish kebab spice and we have the Turkish Ottoman spice coming together. Okay. So then I have this mixture that I put together. This is a couple of tablespoons of flour and some chili powder and a little bit of spiced oregano and some paprika. Off this, a little salt and pepper as well. Why the flour? For thickening. Because even though this is a heavy dish and a lot to it, you're going to want this product to actually thicken. You want the sauce, you want to get a nice chili sauce essentially out of it. So that's why the flour. Again, mixing it through. Everybody comes to the party. Oh, if you could smell this, my gosh. Already it's coming together beautifully and I'm so happy about it. As you can see, it's going to be pretty as well. So then it would not be chili without actually just extra chili powder. This is a heavy, just basic chili powder. And it's about 2 teaspoons, roughly. I'm going to bring this down, boiling a bit more than I want it to. When my burner heats up, it really heats up. Takes it a minute, but once it gets going, it likes to continue. So a little chili powder. Then, a few years back, I was in Aspen, and I was just walking around because it was spring and everything. It was pretty and such, and looking at shops, and I came across this spice shop. Of course, I can't resist a good spice shop, so I went in and looked around, and they had these California green jalapenos dried. So I bought a big jar of these, and that's about 2 teaspoons I put in there. You got to be careful with dried seasoning. Dried seasoning is actually more pungent than fresh. So there's a time for fresh and there's a time for dried. And things like stews and chilies and everything, dried is better. for this. But this green jalapeno, because it's the seed, it's the ribs, it's all the parts of the jalapeno, nothing's been left out, it's actually got a pretty good kick to it. So because Bill will be eating some of this as well as me, I'm reducing the spice levels a little bit more. I might have added a bit more kick if it was just me. And then of course, your standard pinch or two of salt. And I use sea salt for just about everything that I do. And black pepper, because you gotta have the black pepper. And mix that through. Now, you may have been noticing I have a bottle of red wine sitting over here. Why is there wine? Because we're going to add red wine to the chili. It makes it so much better. This is almost ready to go. I'm very excited about this. I'm also really hungry, so that's part of it. So I have here a cab. It's a 2018 cab, so not a bad year for Cabernet and everything. It's not an expensive cab because I would never put a very really expensive, I wouldn't do an Opus 1 into cooking. That's just true drinking. So this is a moderately priced cab, and I'm just going to add about a half a cup of red wine to the mixture. As you can see, the tomatoes are breaking down now. The bell peppers are getting softer. Oh, you can smell the red wine. If I had not mentioned it, I'm happy to be back in California, where I can find some of the ingredients that I've always been looking for, that I like to cook with. I love Denver. Denver was great. I met some wonderful people there for that, and I had some good times and such. But it's nice to be back. I've lived here for many years prior to moving to Denver, so it's nice to be back. So, always taste your food to see if you need to do anything else to it. Oh, that's going to be good. It's going to be a little spicier than I thought it would be. So I'm going to counter that with a little more red wine. So we're probably putting about a total of a cup of red wine in here. So you're going to bring this to a boil. It's been boiling pretty much all along. But you're going to bring this to a boil. Then you're going to reduce it to a simmer, cover it, and let it just do its thing for about a half an hour. So we're going to bring this down. We're going to cover. And we're going to let it just bubble and all the flavors come together and everything for about a half hour of time. And then we'll come back and it'll be soups on or chili on for the evening. It's that simple. It's a one pot dish. Takes some prep work and everything for it. But as you see, we put it together fairly quickly. As it took me about 15 minutes of prep work before and then just doing this part of it. So you can have dinner on the table in under an hour on a weeknight. And that is an awesome thing to be able to do. So we'll see you in about a half hour. We'll test our chili and make sure it's exactly what we thought it would be. See you in a bit. All right, welcome back. So it has been just about a half hour. We have been bubbling and simmering and doing all the wonderful things that chili does. Flavors melding together, everyone becoming very happy. One of the hardest things we have to do as a chef, and I had to learn this the hard way, is to just let things be. So what did I do during this half hour? Well, I cleaned up the kitchen, obviously, because I don't like to be a messy cook. And I poured myself a cocktail because, you deserve it. You gotta have a cocktail. So it's going half hour. Just want to stir that up a little bit. Oh, this is beautiful. I am going to be really happy with this. Do one final taste to make sure you don't need to add any final seasonings. Because remember, if you don't taste your food, you don't know if people are going to like it. Oh my gosh. It is very savory, spicy. That dried jalapeno does the kick off of that. So I get that spicy even with the red wine. You don't taste the wine anymore. It just added a nice undercoat to it. The beans, the tomatoes, the corn, it's all just so awesome. So this is a great, as I mentioned, weeknight meal, but it's also a good prep meal. You can make this ahead of time. The flavors will continue to meld and they'll get there where they need to go. So you don't have to worry about it for that same night if you don't want to do that. I like to top my chili with a little bit of shredded cheese. This is a mild cheddar. Isn't that pretty? Okay. Plus it adds a little something kick to it. So, it's been Meals with Michael. We've done a little homemade chili in less than an hour. Prep time, cook time, cleanup time, all together. You can have your meal on the table. What do you serve with this? You can serve bread with it, a salad with it. Bread will help if people have a spice issue because bread will help cut down the spice as you're eating it. I don't have a spice issue, but we'll see where it goes. So, next time on Meals with Michael, we'll see you then. Be sure to subscribe and tell your friends.